we only had about 4% of the newborn children in this country born without a mother and a father at home, and now we're over 40%. It is not difficult if people in this body would meet with some average people rather than the lobbyists or the big campaign contributors. It is very easy to find young people today who are not getting married, specifically because they find that the federal government has almost a policy of punishing people who get married. Even the Republican Party, in its big, beautiful bill, has, as I count, maybe there are more, has 3 programs in which we are penalizing married couples. I found out today on the tuition credits for private schools that we're supposed to brag about, there's a big marriage penalty there as we punish people who want to go to private school who are married. We also increased the low-income housing tax credit so that more and more Americans are in housing in which they are discouraged from getting married, and also, by the way, are discouraged from working harder. Because in all these programs, in addition to being penalized for getting married, there comes a point where if you take on overtime or get a raise, they begin to take the benefits away from you. And that's what they do in the low-income housing tax credit. If you are paying so much in rent and you decide to work overtime or decide to get a second job, the housing development will have to say, "I'm sorry, you're working harder. We got to raise your rent." Another thing that we should be looking at and trying to change. And a third penalty comes in a mild increase in Pell Grants with regard to technical schools. Pell Grants is another one of those programs where in order to get them, you can't work that hard and you can't be married to somebody with an income. So in any event, I implore my colleagues and implore my leadership team to see what they can do in the year 2026 of not penalizing Americans for getting married and not penalizing Americans for working too hard. So we try to work our way back when there was a time with stronger families. I realize all families can succeed, and I know all sorts of families who do succeed by being very conscientious with their children. But nevertheless, I think we would all agree America would be better off if we worked our way back from the 42% of children born without a mother and father at home back down to the 6 or 5 or 4% that it was in the 50s or 60s. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the gentleman from Wisconsin and his issue that he brings up. It's something that some of my state legislators are actually working on, namely Ms. Melissa Garth Ballard. She's a excellent policymaker, lawmaker back home, and this is something that she cares deeply about and is doing quite a lot of good work on this at the state level, and I applaud her for that. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and to all my colleagues for your comments this evening. It's very much appreciated, and as we move into the next couple of weeks where we'll get to celebrate the holidays, it's excellent to look back and think about the amazing work that's taken place over the last year. But as it's dominating the headlines and recognizing there is a lot to talk about with healthcare, particularly this week, I want to touch on a few aspects. To be abundantly clear, Republicans are currently dealing with the aftermath of what has been a decade or so failure that the Democrats put in place, that an unaffordable and fraudulent healthcare system. For years, Democrats promised Obamacare would lower costs. In reality, premiums have increased nearly 80% since the so-called Affordable Care Act was enacted. The average premium for family coverage is nearly $27,000 per year. A report from the Government Accountability Office confirms what Republicans have said for years. There is significant fraud associated with COVID-era enhanced premium tax credits established by the trifecta of President Joe Biden and majorities in the House and Senate led by Democrats. Again, in 2021, Democrats put in place what's called the enhanced premium tax credits. They did this during their COVID-era bills, the American Rescue Plan and the Inflation Reduction Act, two bills that were massive expansions for several programs, but in particular, they were able to pass this legislation on party line votes and set it for 4 years. Democrats set this policy during COVID to last for 4 years and expire at the end of this year. So in this study, GAO found that 58,000 enrollees matched Social Security death records, with 7,000 of them being deceased before enrollment began. One Social Security number was even associated with 125 different Obamacare policies in 1 year. That's the first level of potential fraud. The second item is that a $0 premium obviously leads to more fraud, and that's what we've seen happen. Enrollment went up without people using or even knowing that they had coverage. This is something you need a check and a balance on. When they moved the original Obama subsidies, which aren't going anywhere, they're still in place. They're not expiring at the end of this year. They've existed from the start. It's only the enhanced version that Democrat Party did in 2021. That's what's expiring. And the worst aspect of those, in my opinion, is the fact that you used to be required to pay just 2% of your annual income towards your health insurance premium, and then the federal government the taxpayer dollars paid the insurance company the remainder of that. You were only required to pay 2%. Right? That moved to 0% in 2021, and since 2021, you had a massive expansion of people being on these premiums and this insurance coverage, but never using it year over year. But the insurance company continued to get taxpayer-funded subsidies directly to them to cover nothing because they never used it. The percentage of people that weren't using their health insurance went up significantly. And it wasn't like people weren't getting hurt or sick at a similar rate. What was happening was they didn't know they were on the system. They were getting signed up, as part of the GAO study will explain. And then the last final piece that I'm going to highlight here is the income caps. So people that could be making 400% above the federal poverty level, the insurance companies that they were getting signed up for were still receiving these subsidies. Right, so originally the talk about Obamacare was just for folks that are very low income and that were uninsured and didn't have the ability to make any payments towards covering their own insurance. So what Obamacare does, it says, all right, if you're 100%, 150% of poverty level, all we require you to do is pay 2% of your income, and federal taxpayers will cover the rest, send it to the insurance, cover that subsidy. In most cases, that's $300 a year that you would have to cover of your own. When that moved to $0, that's when you saw a lot of fraud happening. Because even if you're paying $5, $10, $20 a month towards your insurance, at least you know that's an actual policy and it's going somewhere. When it becomes a $0, all sorts of shenanigans can happen, and that is something that we absolutely have to move away from. And with these subsidies, these enhanced version, these COVID-era subsidies expiring on the Democrats' timeline, and then that $0 aspect will go away. It'll be a few $100s a year for some folks, as opposed to $0. That alone will create an opportunity to cut away a lot of fraud. Look, Democrats created a program that Americans just can't afford. The Unaffordable Care Act works for insurance companies, but it does not work for patients, and it is, like I mentioned, filled with waste and fraud. Insurance revenues have increased from $245 billion when Obamacare was originally passed to $1.4 trillion in 2023. I love it when companies, private sector growth happens. I'm a big supporter of it. I've supported tax policy to ensure that can happen. That type of increase right when Obamacare gets established, to see that rampant of growth, there is a problem there, right? We can celebrate economic growth across the board, shareholder value, all that stuff. But if you look at the massive increase of year over year, aside from revenue and profits, there's something wrong with this entire situation. And you can directly correlate it to when Obamacare increased or came into play. Look, you can't have it so, insurance companies are seeing such record profits, and at the same time, taxpayers are forced to sort of subsidize these plans. That's not a healthy way to grow a market. So the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, ACA, it broke the American healthcare system. It created numerous amounts of problems over the last decade. And since its inception, these premium costs have skyrocketed. Networks have shrunk, and the system has become bloated and inefficient. It's important to remember that the enhanced premium tax credit expiration at the end of the year, again, was set by Democrats. And so when they're complaining that Republicans are going to let this expire, that was their timeline. Right? And this $0 issue, and then not capping it so it's only targeted towards lower income individuals, that stuff has to go away. Right? Even in compromise, bipartisan approaches to deal with this expiration, those aspects had to go away. Those were things that were on the chopping block. And again, I think when folks understand the subsidies aren't going away entirely. If you are a low-income individual, say you're making 100% federal poverty line, and for a single person that's $20,000 a year, your plans are only going to require you to pay a few $100s a year. And just by moving it so that it doesn't go to $0 creates it so there's not so much fraud in the system. And then hopefully over time we don't see this rapid increase in premiums, because that's bad for all Americans. Americans simply deserve better, and they have not been given the healthcare system with the exception of Obamacare. This is why House Republicans have proposed legislation that delivers real relief. The Lower Health Care Premiums for All Act focuses on lasting policies that provide predictability and transparency. And as the name suggests, this is focused on the entirety of the individuals on health care. Right? This isn't just targeted towards a small 7% of the total population. That's that narrow margin in Obamacare. This is touching every single person, and that's the only way to actually lower health premium costs over time. This bill lowers premiums through pharmacy transparency and cost-sharing reductions. This legislation improves options for workers by expanding access to associated health plans. It also ensures that small and mid-sized employers, that they can offer more tailored, affordable care. And it codifies and strengthens choice arrangements, permitting employees to pay pay their premiums pre-tax. So all those things are targeted towards a broad group of people, and not just this tiny little subset that we're hearing a lot of complaining about right now. We're actually focused on the entirety of the world that's out there paying more and more for their health insurance. It's time to implement policies that work for all Americans and that provide predictability and affordability. I'm grateful to be a voice from Utah on the Ways and Means Health Subcommittee during this critical moment, and I am excited to see this legislation move forward, delivering real results, savings, and peace of mind for Utahns and Americans across the country. And with that, Madam Speaker, I yield back the remainder of my time to the chair.
The gentleman yields. Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 3rd, 2025, the chair recognizes the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Schweikert, for 30 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. All right, I promise you at least this one. I think I have the half an hour. I'm going to try not to use all of it, and I will try to slow down some of the speaking. I had a couple odds and ends and then some basic optimism on one or two things. First off, let's do some cleanup. Last week, I actually walked through a little bit of an economic report. We got a preview of it. I think it will be published fairly soon. Measuring What Matters. And look, the title is Why Italy May Be in Better Fiscal Shape Than the U.S. And this is done by some of the super economic geeks out of Boston and Cambridge. But what terrified me, because I'm actually doing my best to read these sorts of documents, is the little sentence I have highlighted here. And I tried to point this out last week, but, and this is for super geeks. If you use a 6% discount rate, you need 104% of a child's lifetime income who's born next year and this year, just to cover the pension and healthcare benefits in our country. So you need more than they're ever going to earn in their entire life just to cover those promises. Now, if you take it down to a 2% discount rate, which is the way you sort of say, here's where inflation and these things are going to be, you still need a 22% increase on their lifetime taxes just to cover pension benefits. And this is actually based on some numbers where I think they may have too high a fertility rate. The reason I point that out is we're not having the really difficult conversation here. What happens in a country this year when my economists in the Joint Economic Committee are saying we may have zero population growth in the United States this year? The fact that we have fewer 18-year-olds today than we had 20 years ago, but almost double those who are 65 and older. So I keep coming here week after week after week and showing charts about the debt and the unfunded liabilities. And now I'm seeing some stories today saying, hey, net interest will be over $1 trillion this year. If you add in the paying back, because we've got to pay interest back to the Social Security Trust Fund and all those when we borrow the money, it could be $1.25 trillion of interest. So what you should understand there is, let's walk through some of the hierarchy. Social Security is number one. We're going to spend 1.6 trillion this year on Social Security. Guess what the number two expense in our country is now? It's interest. If you do the total interest load, interest, and then the next is Medicare. And number four turns out to be the Obamacare or the ACA subsidies and Medicaid is number four. Guess what's number five now in our spending? It's defense. And so often, I'll talk to my liberal brothers and sisters, and they'll turn to you and say, we should cut defense, that way we can give out more money. It's now number five. So look, it breaks my heart because we keep having these discussions, and I've come behind this microphone for over a decade now and feel like sometimes I'm doing a junior economics lecture. And the point is trying to say, here's the scale of the problem, but there are actually solutions. If we could be bold, if we could be creative, if we can take on the entrenched incumbency of the bureaucracy and business models. So let's actually do a couple things here and see if I can make this make sense. So let's march along. Sort of important, and see if I can make this make sense. This is last year. The red is spending, the blue is tax receipts. That gap is debt. You'll notice, actually, our projection for the 26th fiscal year is our tax receipts. So tax collections are actually up. They're actually up almost 17.8%, which is wonderful. Most of it's capital gains. The stock market's done well. And oddly enough, our spending is actually slightly down. But we still have this massive gap. And our best guess is we're still running a $2 trillion deficit this year. And depending what the Supreme Court does in regards to the enhanced tariffs, we may pick up some other liability that we're going to have to find a way to work out with the White House. But look, this is an improvement, but the scale is still terrifying. It's still a couple $1 trillion. And I know there's some products that have come out of the White House, CBO and others saying, debt may only be 1.6, 1.8. It's not what we're tracking. Because so far, the first quarter of this year, we still have a couple more weeks on it. For every dollar in tax receipts, we're spending about $1.62. We think this will even out to being about $1 of taxes in, and we're going to spend about $1.43. And guess what? Most of that debt, that growth in that debt, is interest, because we've been refinancing a lot of our debt that was sold a few years ago when interest rates were very, very low, and healthcare costs. So, a point I want to make, and I'm going to come back to this a couple times here. A couple hours ago, we had the Joint Economic Committee over in the Senate. It's one of my blessings. I get to chair it. And we did something, and both sides were pretty good. Some Democrats took some pokes at us, but the theme of this Joint Economic hearing was healthcare. We as a body, we as Congress, we as a society have turned into financial engineering. The ACA, Obamacare, is a financing bill. It's who pays and who gets subsidized. The Republican alternative had much better, somewhat better actuarial distribution, but was still a financing bill. It's who got to pay and who got subsidized. Medicare for All is almost completely a financing bill. How about if we held a hearing where we talked about not the financing of healthcare, but things that could disrupt the cost of healthcare? And, we had one gentleman from one of the biggest life insurance companies in America come in and talk about saying, hey, here's the things we do to keep our insured population alive and healthier. We do things, we reward them for doing these data rings or putting things on their wrists or how they eat, or if we gamify some exercise, and talking about how much healthier their population is. And for them, it's a profit model. Turns out if you sell life insurance, the longer someone keeps making their premium payments, the more money you make. They were incentivized. We had one of the lead medical officers from a healthcare system in Arizona called Banner talking about how they're trying to align a system that actually they get rewarded for helping populations be healthier, and the technology they're using to do it. So the fact of the matter is, we're finally trying to drag the conversation around this place from being financial engineering is the future of healthcare. Let's subsidize more populations, even though I'm going to show you a couple boards here of how much of that subsidy, your tax money, is just disappearing. And maybe the crazy conversation here of what happens, a combination of use of technology, of cures, of availability. If it's true that glutides, you think of them as GLP-1s, one of the deals the president made is the tablet version. It's going to go to $149 sometime next year. And we know obesity from the Milken study a few years ago is 47% of U.S. healthcare spending. What would happen if we could help our brothers and sisters get heavier? And yes, obesity is a complex. Diabetes is a complex autoimmune. There's all sorts of things that go on. I accept the complexity. But the morality of what happens in a society, if you could, over a couple years, help your brothers and sisters get healthier, it turns out you could have these remarkable changes in cost. Because how many times have you heard the saying, in healthcare, 5% of the population is over 50% of the spend? Turns out much of that 50% of spending is people who have multi-chronic conditions. Substantial portion of that is because of obesity. let's not be afraid to talk about it. Let's do the moral thing of help ourselves, help our brothers and sisters, and it actually helps the debt and deficit. We published a major report 2 years ago now showing that obesity will be responsible for $9.1 trillion of additional healthcare spending over 10 years, making it the single most expensive thing in our country. And yet, how much work have you seen behind these microphones saying, maybe we shouldn't always talk about the subsidization of healthcare and start talking about what we all pay? You know, for a decade, I've come behind these microphones with technology and ideas. So we're going to walk through just a little bit on the ACA because I can't stop myself after what I heard a couple of our Democrat colleagues say. This is from the audits and the Joint Economic Research, and it's a very simple thing. This is on the ACA, the Obamacare subsidies. And then the enhanced subsidies, so it's the subsidies on top of the subsidies. We actually get to the point where it appears only 33% of the money actually goes to you as a consumer for your health care, for you're getting well. We have 27% what they call dead weight. It just disappears. It's someone who's insured who never made a claim, even though they may have been 100% subsidized, and now we're finding out huge portions of that appear to be fraud. People who are signed up, but because last year over 41% of the ACA population, which is 7% of healthcare, so ACA, the Obamacare population, 41% paid no premiums. Well, if you're not paying premiums, you see how easy it would be to sign someone up, take the commissions, and no one ever has to know because you're not getting a bill. We're discovering stunning amounts of fraud. The other thing which was just fascinating is we have in the study, almost over 38% of these dollars disappearing, functioning in insurance. And you go, but they can only hold 6-7% of it. That's not actually what happens. And so, we published an entire paper on this 2 weeks ago on the Joint Economic Committee. Go to the website, Joint Economic Committee Republican, and you'll see our methodology and where the math is. So we're back to once again arguing, is this how you want your taxpayer dollars to disappear? We want our brothers and sisters to have the most affordable health care possibly in America. But to do it, do you want us to funnel your cash, your tax dollars into this level of fraud? It's just, we got to walk through this. So, and why the fixation, particularly for my Joint Economic Committee and myself, on changing the actual cost of healthcare, is you look at the long run charts, the national healthcare expenditures, we have this substantial gap. And I know these types of charts are almost impossible to read, but what I'm trying to help understand here is, here's the gross domestic product we're growing as a country, but the cost of healthcare is growing substantially faster. And a factoid I beg of you, whether you be on the left side or the right side or confused somewhere in between, in 7 years, the $1 trillion we spend this year on Medicare, in 7 years becomes $2 trillion. So we double the spend on Medicare in the next 7 years. And in 7 years, the trust fund's gone. Meaning if you're a hospital or a doctor, the part of your revenues you receive on Medicare patients is from the Medicare Part A trust fund, it's gone. It's gone in 7 years. Let alone the Social Security trust fund's also gone in 7 years, and we doubled senior poverty, but we're not allowed to talk about that, and I'll get an angry text message this evening saying, David, you can't talk about that, as the Democrat political consultants are saying, oh, good, more tax. The immorality of this place to not want to tell the truth about our demographics and the complete barrier we have built legally on innovation. So, I have a couple really geeky things here, but I'm going to skip them and go to something it's a little crazy. So, every week when I do these, I try to come here with something that's optimistic. So, A few years ago, I got behind this microphone and talked about a University of Houston drug that basically takes fentanyl in your system, and I'm sure I'm describing it partially wrong, but I'm doing my best, and attaches a protein to it, and therefore the drug can't pass the brain-blood barrier. It lasts for 6 months to a year. What would happen if I came to you and showed you some of the economic studies we've done in the Joint Economic Committee, reading the literature? And some of our data, we're a few years out of date, but in 2020, we were approaching $1.5 trillion for the cost of fentanyl in America in 2020. You realize that's more than the defense budget. That's almost what we're going to spend this year in Medicare, in Social Security, is the cost to society from fentanyl. So what happens if someone like me comes to you and says, hey, and anyone that's interested, look it up, because Wired Magazine last week actually did an amazingly detailed article. It's a long article, it's a long read, on the labs around the country. They featured University of Houston and a couple of the private companies that are trying to bring these things to market. They call it a fentanyl vaccine. It's technically not a vaccine. What would happen in our society if someone who's used a synthetic opioid, it's rewired their brain, and one of the ways we help them get through rehab? How about if you're the police officer who doesn't have to worry about having Narcan close by? The other challenge I will give you is go look up a couple of the articles that are about Philadelphia and some of the animal tranquilizers, and this is beyond the nazepines, and I think that's spelled with an X. It's a whole nother category that make it almost impossible to detox because the cravings are so violent. And once it starts in the East Coast, it's coming across the country. I beg of everyone here to start to think about what happens if our ability to help bring a solution, that's a drug solution, to help our brothers and sisters and protect our first responders, because so far the data on, let's call it a fentanyl vaccine, it's 92 to 98% effective. What if this were worth a few $100 billion in economic savings in our society in a single year? So repeatedly I come here and I talk about, helping our brothers and sisters with obesity, the technology that you can walk around and have a medical lab attached to your body. But here's some of the others when I've talked about biology and synthetic biology and other solutions. They're out there. But how do I get the brain trust around here to come together and say, we're going to take all these ideas and build a unified theory, and this unified theory is how we crash the price of health care. Instead of spending a couple more years arguing back and forth of how much more money we should borrow to hand out as subsidies, particularly to insurance companies. That's my simple theory I'm trying to sell, is there are solutions. They're complex. Actually, you got to read a lot of long articles and try to understand what's going on. You got to stop being afraid, and you got to stop protecting incumbent business models that are terrified of having cures, solutions, better and faster ways to do it, and the use of technology. But if we get rid of that fear and start doing what's moral and economically rational around here, we're in the time of miracles. All right, Mr. Speaker, with that, I'm going to let you go back to your lives. I yield back.
Yields back. Does the gentleman have a motion?
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House stand adjourned.
Just read this. The question is on the motion to adjourn. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Accordingly, the House stands adjourned until 9 a.m. tomorrow. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's an exciting day. I think that I'm here to announce the biggest merger in history, merger of Main Street and Wall Street. So thank you. I'm grateful to be with you all. An entire generation of Americans is about to learn in the most life-changing way possible how even small contributions can become generational wealth. And it's all thanks to President Trump. Trump accounts are the president's gift to the American people. They represent perhaps the most groundbreaking policy innovation of modern times, and they are shaped by a simple vision: every American a shareholder. When every American owns a share of the most powerful economy on earth, every American will benefit from our nation's growth. Every American will capture a portion of the productivity gains brought about by AI, robotics, and other world-changing technologies. And every American will be invested in the free market system and, most importantly, its continued success. Trump accounts are not a government program. They are a radically new platform that returns us to a social contract anchored in individual ownership where everyone starts life on an investing journey. By giving each newborn citizen a material stake in the American dream through Trump accounts, President Trump is minting future investors on every rung of the economic ladder. He is embedding financial literacy and empowering today's youth to shape their own financial future. And he is creating an ownership economy to secure the American experiment for a new generation and the next 250 years. This morning, I will explain how the President is advancing these goals and how you can help. We are the most giving country in the history of the world, but we have long lacked a platform of private ownership from birth that facilitated philanthropy to do at scale direct giving to American children. Not anymore. Through Trump accounts, our president is creating an ownership economy where all citizens become shareholders in America's wealth. Today, 38% of American adults do not own stocks. But with Trump accounts, over time, we can get that number to zero. I've talked in the past about the importance of promoting parallel prosperity, an era of economic expansion where Wall Street and Main Street grow together. But the beauty of Trump accounts is that prosperity no longer runs parallel, it fuses together. The biggest merger in history. Under Trump accounts, Wall Street's success becomes Main Street's success and vice versa. In addition to giving America's youth a crash course in capitalism and an economic leg up, Trump accounts will instill financial literacy in America's youth in a way no book, test, or school curriculum could. They will do so by providing students with a hands-on education in the power of compound growth. Treasury is wholly committed to promoting financial responsibility in the next generation through its Financial Literacy and Education Commission. Trump accounts embody the elegant alchemy of the golden age. They turn compound growth into American greatness, and they share that greatness evenly across every cohort of newborn citizens. There are 4 ways Trump accounts will be funded. First, through an initial $1,000 seed from the government. Second, through the donations of parents, friends, and employers. Third, through the generous donations of wealthy Americans and philanthropic organizations. And fourth, through donations from state governments. Let's start with the government seed. Thanks to President Trump, eligible children born between January 1, 2025 and December 31, 2028 will receive a $1,000 contribution from the Treasury Department that will immediately be invested in an index fund. To claim this investment, most families need merely check a box on Form 4547, the most aptly named tax document of all time. The compound growth from Treasury's initial seed funding alone stands to make young Americans wealthy. The S&P has grown at a rate of 10.5% each year on average since the 1950s. Assuming that growth rate continues, a single $1,000 deposit into a Trump account at birth will grow to over $600,000 by the age of retirement. Our president is putting the American dream within reach of every citizen, no matter the circumstances of birth. When young Americans turn 28, they can use their Trump accounts to keep saving for their retirement, or they can use them to purchase a home or further their education, two hallmarks of the American dream. Trump accounts will benefit from the compound growth of Treasury's initial seed funding, but they can also benefit from outside donations. Starting on July 4th, our nation's 250th anniversary, parents, family members, employers, and friends will be able to contribute up to $5,000 to each Trump account each year. By contributing the maximum amount each year, the Council of Economic Advisors estimates that a child's Trump account would be worth more than $1 million by the time they turn 28. We foresee a day when employers offer matching contributions to Trump accounts in the same way they offer matching contributions to retirement accounts. And we foresee a day when parents contribute to their children's Trump accounts in the same way they would contribute to their 529 account. Keep in mind that parents can create Trump accounts for any child under 18, not just those born between 2025 and 28. The third way of funding Trump accounts is through the generous donation of philanthropists and charitable organizations. Susan and Michael Dell have led the way by pledging to donate $6.25 billion of their own money to help fund Trump accounts for 25 million children under the age of 10. To put this number in perspective, the Dells made the single largest private commitment to U.S. children in our nation's history. Their donation provides an additional $250 in funding to Trump accounts for children across the country. The Dell's donation was the starting sound in a national race to top out Trump accounts for the next generation. And this morning, I'm delighted to announce the first entrance into that race, world-renowned investor Ray Dalio. Ray has joined what we are calling the 50-State Challenge. The 50-State Challenge is a special initiative Treasury is launching today to rally the nation's philanthropists around a common cause. Through the 50-State Challenge, we are inviting every philanthropist in every state across the country to partner with us in building generational wealth for America's children through Trump accounts. Ray is representing Connecticut in the 50-State Challenge. Today, he will announce a generous contribution to boost funding for Trump accounts for kids across Connecticut. Ray has made the first move, but we welcome other donors and foundations in Connecticut and across the country to join him in the 50-State Challenge. The president is calling on our nation's business leaders and philanthropic organizations to help us make America great again by securing the financial future of America's children. Given the amazing level of interest and the generous donations we've seen so far, I am confident we will see many more donations, contributions pouring in. The fourth way of funding Trump accounts is through state governments. The administration has been working closely with a number of governors to determine the best way states can work with the federal government to expand access to Trump accounts to as many children as possible. Thus far, 20 states are considering topping up the accounts. State involvement can take many different forms. States can, for example, tie top-ups of Trump accounts to completion of financial literacy courses, or they can contribute directly to Trump accounts at birth. States are the laboratories of our democracy, and their experiments with Trump accounts will surface the best methods for funding over time. Trump accounts will not only restore the American dream for the next generation, they will make it more accessible than ever before. Together, we can usher in the president's golden age by building the most affordable, prosperous, and opportunity-rich America in our nation's history. I look forward to working with all of you to secure American prosperity through Trump accounts. Thank you. And now it's my great honor to introduce Speaker Mike Johnson, whom, without possible, the Trump accounts would not have been without Speaker Johnson's hard work on the One Big Beautiful Bill, getting it passed record time on July 4th, the Trump accounts would not be possible. I remember when Speaker Johnson told me in April, he said, I think I can have the bill out of the House by Memorial Day. I said, really? And he did it, and which gave us a lot of momentum. Leader Thune got it across the finish line on July 4th. And again, the bill is big, it is beautiful, but one of the most transformative pieces in this legislation, they are the Trump accounts. So I will welcome Speaker Johnson. And again, Mike, thank you for your leadership on this.
Thank you. What an exciting day this is. It's so great to see you all here at Treasury with our extraordinary Secretary. Scott Bessent is a godsend to America. Can I get a round of applause for our Treasury Secretary? Yes. President Trump will have a lot of extraordinary legacy items that history will record, but one of the best choices early on was selecting this gentleman to serve in this position. And he's put together an extraordinary team, and the truth be told, we would not have gotten the big, beautiful bill, the Working Families Tax Cut, done as we did without his steady hand of leadership. Anyone who had a question, I drug him over here to Treasury and made him sit through a little class with the Treasury Secretary, and he helped get them to yes. So that's something history will record as well. We are so excited about this because America needs this. It's an idea that is long overdue. People have been struggling. You know, we inherited when President Trump came in and this Republican Congress took over in January with the new administration, we inherited a real mess. We had 4 years of Bidenomics, and we all know what that did to people's pocketbooks, to their outlook on the economy, and to their real experience in having to suffer through record high levels of inflation, lower wages, and less opportunity. So when we took the reins of power, we were determined to fix all of that. We had to fix virtually every area of public policy, and we got to work on it. And the result was that big, beautiful bill, aptly named by the president, also known as the Working Families Tax Cut, because that's what we achieved. We got real economic relief on the way for the American people. Largest tax cut in U.S. history. Largest savings of taxpayers' dollars at the same time, by the way. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, real relief for seniors on Social Security, all the other big benefits in the bill. But among all those features, one that I think will have a lasting effect, a truly lasting effect on the economy and the financial stability of individuals in our country at large, is the Trump account. And what we're here to explain, and what the Secretary just laid out, is an extraordinary transformational policy. It is truly going to change the lives of every American. And we wrote the big, beautiful bill. It was geared for lower and middle class earners to give relief to hardworking families. And this is one of the primary drivers of that. Now, I'm not going to give you a long speech. I could, because I'm really excited about this and what it's going to do for our families, for the economy. But one thing I really like, I think it's almost poetic, is that the implementation date happens to fall on July 5th of next year. right after our nation's 250th birthday. As the Secretary noted, the greatest nation in the history of the world, the most benevolent nation in the history of the world, the most successful, most free, most powerful. And there's a reason for that. I'll just leave you with that thought. America is built on these foundational principles, and among them is the idea of the free market, of individual financial stewardship and responsibility, the idea of capitalism, that everybody gets a shot. If you work hard and you play by the rules and you do your best, you can get to the next rung on that economic ladder. And now with this, there's a bit of a turbo boost to that idea. And while we've always believed in private property ownership, private ownership, as the Secretary noted, now there is a platform, a new platform for private ownership. What an extraordinary concept, and what a big thing to celebrate as we celebrate our nation's supercentennial, as the President calls it, next year. The idea that these principles and these foundational premises that make our great nation will flourish in a whole new way. So we're so excited to be a small part of that. We're so excited for the exceptional leadership, for the vision of President Trump to do this. I can't wait to tell everybody about Form 4547. If we could only put an exclamation point at the end of the form number, that would be even perfect. This is big stuff for a big, incredible country. So grateful to be a small part of it. Thank you all so much for being here. God bless.
Thank you to Speaker Johnson. Good morning. I'm Assistant Secretary for Financial Institutions, Luke Pettit, and it's my privilege to help lead the implementation work for Trump accounts that's being done here at the Treasury Department. In August of this year, President Trump announced a national initiative, America by Design, to improve experiences for Americans, especially involving websites where Americans interface with the United States government. In doing this, the President established the National Design Studio and appointed a Chief Design Officer. We're privileged to have our Chief Design Officer, Joe Gebbia, here with us today, who's also the co-founder of a great American company, Airbnb. It's also our honor to welcome Senator Katie Britt of Alabama. Senator Britt has long been a champion of our nation's youth and was a critical partner in ensuring that Trump accounts made it into the working family tax cuts earlier this year. Please welcome me in joining Joe and Senator Britt.
All right.
I'm going to do some comments first, and then we'll. Great. Well, thank you, Luke. Thank you, Secretary Bissett. It's great to be here, and it's great to share and be a part of this very big upgrade to America. This is one of the most exciting product launches coming out of Silicon Valley. I've seen a lot over my career. I have to say, it's rare that you get to see a product launch quite of this scale, quite of this excitement, and one that deserves equally big storytelling and equally considered design. As Luke mentioned, the President signed an executive order this summer to stand up the National Design Studio with his initiative called America by Design to improve the way we communicate in America, to improve the way the government presents itself. No more do government websites need to be mediocre. Why? We can bring private sector and industry standard design, usability, technology to improve the way that America experiences the government. Now, when this initiative, if this initiative were to be launched, I'd say 50 years ago, you'd either have to walk into a building and access it or maybe get something in the mail. At the time, I imagine the building would have been beautifully designed and the mail would have been a nice form. The reality is people access the government through websites, which is why the President so strategically decided to invest in upgrading across the government. So with that, I'm excited to share a major update to trumpaccounts.gov. We'll pull the website up right now. So Trump accounts jumpstart the American dream. We're building long-term financial security for millions of children by creating tax-advantaged investment accounts for U.S. citizens under the age of 18. Coming next summer in 2026, people will be able to put in their emails, which we've collected a lot so far. There's a lot of interest in this. As we scroll down the page, we give people a glimpse of what this might look like come next summer, where they get to see your child has received $1,000 from the United States Treasury Department. As the Secretary mentioned, this will be invested into index funds. And we have a chance to actually show children what's in those index funds, to actually get to participate in great American companies and see how their gift changes over time. As we scroll down the page, so kids get $1,000 for every American child between January 1st, 2025 and December 31st, 2028. The account's fully in the child's name, and the parents become the custodian until the child turns 18. No contributions are necessary beyond $1,000, but you can deposit up to $5,000 a year to help accelerate the growth. This will be launching, we like to say July 4th. July 5th is good too. There's 3 easy steps. Enroll your child by making an election when you file your taxes. Second, a financial institution will receive your funds and activate your account. Third, sit back and watch the money grow. You can contribute anytime or not. Big things start with small steps. Every parent just smiled. Jumpstart their financial future. Build your child's financial foundation right from the beginning with $1,000 from the Treasury. Your child has a huge head start on the American dream. As they age and grow up, the power of time in the market, your account balance will grow over time on its own. Whether you choose to contribute additionally or not, you can do up to $5,000 a year to accelerate gains. Your child continues to grow up. Proven winners, all-American growth. Your child's funds will automatically be invested in American companies. The app and interface let you see exactly what the stocks are that they own and how they're performing. Growing their finances and their education. As they get older, they'll learn about investing and watch their money compound in real time. They'll gain more than just money. They'll gain financial literacy. At 18, Trump account is all theirs. They're free to continue letting it grow, or they can withdraw funds right away to use for things like education or housing, with all the tax advantages of a traditional IRA. Your child's account grows with them, and we modeled out. At age 18, if you didn't add anything else to the $1,000, your child would have $5,800 by the time they graduate high school. If you contributed $250 a year by age 18, you'd have estimated, forecasted, $20,700. And if you contributed the max $5,000 a year, by age 18, that would compound to $800,000. Now, Secretary doesn't give you an idea. We're going to show, update later today to show at age 18 and also at the age of retirement. So people will be able to click through this. Thank you for that product idea, Secretary. So people can see the forecast if they hold on to this through the age of retirement. As mentioned, companies are stepping up. The private sector is leaning into this. These are some of the first initial companies. I imagine this page will get very long. We'll have to figure out a way to click and see the full list at some point. And as mentioned, the leadership of Michael and Susan Dell, along today with the announcement of Ray and Barbara Dalio, stepping up from the philanthropic sector. This is a pro-family initiative that will help millions of Americans harness the strength of our economy to lift up the next generation. And they'll really be getting a big jump on life, said our President, Donald J. Trump. We've got Q&A for parents. We think kids are going to be curious in this too, so we've got Q&A for them, and also for corporations and philanthropists. We'll be updating this later today with the news out of this conference, and closing out with the next best thing to watching your child grow up is a tax-advantaged investment account that belongs entirely to them. So this is a big update to trumpaccounts.gov. Thank you.
Absolutely incredible.
Thank you, Senator. It's great to be with you today.
It's great to be with you, and thank you for all that you're doing.
Likewise, likewise. I want to start a question for you because you were an instrumental part of the passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill. Can you talk about why Trump accounts were so important to you to get into that bill?
Yeah, look, this is transformational. You think about being a young parent, right? And so many of us remember being in the hospital and having this beautiful baby that you're like, you're going to send this child home with me in about 24 hours. And you start to think of all that you want to provide for your child. And the immediate things you think about are what's right in front of you, you know, diapers and the right car seat for safety and how are you going to make all of this work? But ultimately, what you want for your child, for every child, is a chance at the American dream. And look, after the last 4 years of the previous administration, I think all of us, you know, it felt heavy. You know, with inflation and just the cost of life in general, many people felt like that dream was out of reach. And the incredible thing about the working families tax cut is that President Trump said, no, we're going to make good on the promises we made to the American people. We are going to see these parents and help them provide that opportunity. And we want the next generation to be better off as a result of our leadership. And I think there is no more evidence, greater evidence of that than these accounts. And when we're looking at America and the fact that we are that shining city on the hill, everybody wants to be a part of that. And we know that about 60% of Americans are invested in markets, but we know 40% are not. And the thing that President Trump and the Secretary have made such a priority is how do we make sure that that 40% has the same chances that the 60 do? How do we close the gap between the have and the have-nots? How do we create a pathway for these kids, maybe in an underserved community or have not previously had access to have the ability to achieve that American dream? And that's what this does. And we are going to look back on this moment and see that it not only changed our nation and how we work together, from government to companies to philanthropists, but it is truly going to change lives. And when we see these stories unfold, even in a few years for kids that are under 18, but ultimately these children that are born during President Trump's administration and have the seed money of $1,000 and what it does for them, whether it's home ownership or education or other opportunities, it is going to be remarkable, and it's going to be the envy of the world.
What do you think the impact will be at age 18 for a child who's born during this administration 18 years from now? Like, what do you imagine the impact might be?
Oh, tremendous. I think, so I have two children, 15 and 16, and you rest assured that my husband and I are going to go ahead and set one up as soon as possible. And you think about just the growth that can occur at 18 or 28 or what could ultimately happen. But you think about a child that is born right now that is going to allow this to grow. And I believe that what we've seen from the Dells and what we have seen from companies already stepped up, that is just the beginning. President Trump and the Secretary have an opportunity to just inspire in a way that we've not seen any other leader be able to do. So I believe that will be compounded tremendously. And I think ultimately, you've seen the American dream slip away. Like, one example is home ownership, and you heard the Secretary talk about that earlier. So previously, people could buy their first home between 25, 26, 27 on average. Now we're looking at, 38 and beyond. What this will be able to do for a down payment or an educational opportunity or skills training is going to change the game. And listen, I want to thank you. I have a question for you. So as a parent, number one, I told you when I saw those little feet up there, that just took me back in time. And I also thought, how am I going to do all of these things? And then how do you know what to do and when to do it? You have been transformative with bringing products to market. And you have found a way to target the information that is needed in a way that people like me can receive it. Because I'll be honest with you, I am that parent that has to get my kids to help me figure out what to do online quite a bit. And so talk to me about being the head of the National Design Studio and how this project, kind of the framing that you took into account for this project to help parents like me be able to navigate this and actually be able to access it.
Well, thank you for that question. I think this is such an important initiative, and to make it sure it gets the widest adoption possible, as a designer, you want to just make things as simple as possible, whether that's the messaging, whether that's the interface or the usability of something. If you want to increase conversion rate, make it simple. And so, my company was really built around that. How do we apply great design to helping somebody take a great vacation, take a trip somewhere, connect with that accommodation? And so this is really bringing those same principles here. How do we have really clear communication, really clear, crisp messaging so that the American at any socioeconomic level can understand how this fits into their life and how it benefits them?
Yeah, and I would imagine that, as a new mom or dad in the hospital, or, bringing your child home, that we're going to find ways to make sure that this is front and center, that they are educated about this and can explore and also know 45, 47, what to check when they're doing their taxes as well. And I'm sure that just making it easy to navigate has been a top priority of yours.
That's right. I think, and this is really, as a consumer of government products, as an American, there's so much more we could be doing to tell the story about the great efforts of the government, of the administration, of these kinds of initiatives to really resonate and connect with American people. And so this is really the mandate from the president to the National Design Studio.
Well, and I think that's what makes this administration so different, is we know that you are the expert in how to deliver that. We've seen the success of that and knit together. And so as a small business owner in a more rural part of the state, and in a small town, you kind of sort of think that markets are out of reach for you. When we opened that up, every grandchild, and we finally had ownership in something that was bigger than ourselves, and we would watch it every single year. When we're thinking about these accounts, Joe, this is about access, this is about education, and this is about opportunity. And with one delivery of this, you give a child all of those things. I know for me, it created an interest in that in a way that I would not have had otherwise. It also a pride of ownership. And so you think about parents all across the country that are going to be looking at these accounts and thinking, what can my child do with this? How is this going to help them achieve? And then the educational process that comes with that access and the ultimate opportunity is going to change lives forever.
That's right. I mean, as a policymaker, you've been at the tip of the spear on these issues, whether it's about being part of the pro-family party. Can you speak more about those initiatives or other things that you're involved in?
Yeah, look, there is no doubt that under President Trump's leadership, the Republican Party has become the party of families. We have become the party of parents. We've become the party of hardworking Americans. And so to get to be a part of delivering on that has really been incredible. The Working Families Tax Cut, as mentioned by the speaker, have so many things in here for hardworking Americans and people, allowing them to keep more of their hard-earned dollars, making sure that dollar goes further, and creating opportunity like we're talking about today. One of the other things that I was proud to lead the effort in the Working Families Tax Cut was actually addressing the affordability and accessibility of childcare. So it doesn't matter if you're talking to our largest manufacturers or our smallest business on a main street in a community in Alabama. They tell you being able to recruit and retain a workforce is one of the things that they deal with, and one of the issues that they have with that is affordability and accessibility of childcare. We know that there are a lot of people that want to re-engage in the workforce, and if you want to do that, I want you to have that opportunity to help us as we build back America. And we want to make sure that that impediment, we want people to be able to have more children and do more things, that an impediment of affordability or accessibility, that we help knock that down. And so in this, the tax code was actually updated for the first time since 1986 when it came to DCAP. So when Ronald Reagan was the president, whether that's a voucher program or an on-site facility, and then also small businesses for the first time can take part in that as well. So this is transformative because we've heard people talk about affordability of childcare for years. President Trump and this administration and the Republican Senate and House actually did something about it. So we're excited for people to actually get to make use of that as well. A lot of good things coming.
Well, thank you so much for all you're doing. Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Britton. morning. I'm Derek Tyre. I joined the Treasury Department in January on the Secretary's team, and now I'm performing the duties of Deputy Secretary. I was privileged last year to work for Speaker Johnson, so it's a special moment for me to be in the room with the Speaker, with the Secretary. These are two leaders fit for the time. These are the best possible people for these roles. And the first 6 months of the year that we spent working on the One Big Beautiful Bill, getting that in place by July, and getting these important tax cuts for families was experience of a lifetime. Thank you to Senator Britt for being here and for your leadership on pro-growth and pro-family tax policy. We also want to mention the absence of Caroline Leavitt, the President's dynamic press secretary, who is traveling with the President, but we are in full partnership with the White House on Trump accounts. Successful implementation of Trump accounts is driven by close coordination between Treasury and the IRS. Even before these historic tax cuts were signed, we established working groups across Treasury and IRS to develop guidance and to work on implementation, systems upgrades, so these provisions would be effective as soon as possible in 2026. To guide that process and ensure a successful filing season next year, Secretary Bessent, in his capacity, he has many jobs, in his capacity as acting IRS Commissioner, he called on SSA Administrator Frank Bisignano to assist. Frank is the first ever CEO of the Internal Revenue Service, and I've been fortunate to have the chance to work with him in recent months. His extensive experience leading large organizations, managing the upgrade and modernization of complex financial systems, these are an invaluable asset to the IRS and to the American taxpayer. With Secretary Bessent and Frank Bisignano at the helm, we truly have world-class leadership that our tax admin system has so desperately needed. Concurrent with major IRS upgrades and IT modernization, Treasury and IRS will deliver a successful filing season and Trump account rollout during 2026. So it's my honor to welcome Frank Bisignano, CEO of the IRS.
Thank you, Derek, and thank you for all you do, providing the leadership that you do across the organization. I'm delighted to be here today on this momentous occasion with the outstanding leadership that you've seen come before me. Speaker Johnson, Senator Britt, my good partner in the digital transformation of government, Joe Gebbia, who's an outstanding innovator and technologist, and, you know, taking what he did in startups and bringing it to the largest startup in the world, the U.S. government. And of course, I am so fortunate to have the opportunity to work with a friend and an outstanding leader and somebody who's transforming this government and driving results as never seen before, Treasury Secretary Bessent. Thank you to President Trump for allowing me the opportunity and trusting me to be the first CEO of the IRS. And with his leadership and Treasury Secretary Bessent's, we will be unparalleled in what we accomplish. It is an honor for me to lead this great organization, which is intrinsic to the functioning and success of our nation. Our teams are working to deliver Secretary of the Treasury and Acting Commissioner Bessent's vision for transforming IRS. As CEO, I am committed to ensuring the IRS sharpens its focus on three priorities. First, enhancing customer service. We will serve the American public in a manner they never were before. Improving collections. We fundamentally at the IRS is the largest revenue pool in the world, and we will perform better on that. And for the American public, safeguarding privacy. Related to our broader efforts to make the IRS work better and more efficiently for the American people, we're laser focused on implementing the one big, beautiful bill. There's no words that can be said better or I'm more proud to say. As part of that, I am delighted to be here today to talk about one of the most important provisions from this historic piece of legislation. Trump accounts. As you have heard from others, this is going to be one of the most impactful policy endeavors of this administration. And it is truly an honor to work at the direction of President Trump on this initiative. The best way for me to describe the goal of Trump accounts is to use the president's own words. This is a pro-family initiative that will help millions of Americans harness the strength of our economy to lift up the next generation and generations to follow. Trump accounts are going to unlock the American.
Good evening, America. 11 months ago, I inherited a mess, and I'm fixing it. When I took office, inflation was the worst in 48 years, and some would say in the history of our country, which caused prices to be higher than ever before, making life unaffordable for millions and millions of Americans. This happened during a Democrat administration, and it's when we first began hearing the word affordability. Our border was open, and because of this, our country was being invaded by an army of 25 million people, many who came from prisons and jails, mental institutions, and insane asylums. They were drug dealers, gang members, and even 11,888 murderers, more than 50% of whom killed more than one person. This is what the Biden administration allowed to happen to our country, and it can never be allowed to happen again. We had men playing in women's sports, transgender for everybody, crime at record levels with law enforcement, and words such as that just absolutely forbidden. We had the worst trade deals ever made, and our country was laughed at from all over the world, but they're not laughing anymore. Over the past 11 months, we have brought more positive change to Washington than any administration in American history. There has never been anything like it, and I think most would agree. I was elected in a landslide, winning the popular vote and all 7 swing states and everything else, with a mandate to take on a sick and corrupt system that really just took the wealth from people and crushed the dreams of the American people. For the last 4 years, the United States was ruled by politicians who fought only for insiders, illegal aliens, career criminals, corporate lobbyists, prisoners, terrorists, and above all, foreign nations, which took advantage of us at levels never seen before. They flooded your cities and towns with illegal aliens. They decimated your hard-earned savings. They indoctrinated your children with hate for America. They just released a level of violent felons that we had never seen to prey on innocent. They caused war. They caused mayhem. They caused a horrible situation all over the globe. But now you have a president who fights for the law-abiding, hardworking people of our country, the ones who make this nation run, who make this nation work. And after just 1 year, we have achieved more than anyone could have imagined. Starting on day one, I took immediate action to stop the invasion of our southern border. For the past 7 months, 0 illegal aliens have been allowed into our country, a feat which everyone said was absolutely impossible. Do you remember when Joe Biden said that he needed Congress to pass legislation to help close the border? He was always blaming Congress and everyone else. As it turned out, we didn't need legislation. We just needed a new president. We inherited the worst border anywhere in the world, and we quickly turned it into the strongest border in the history of our country. In other words, in a few short months, we went from worst to best. We're deporting criminals, restoring safety to our most dangerous cities. Just take a look at Washington, D.C. It's at levels of safety that we've never seen before. And they decimated the bloodthirsty foreign drug cartels. We did that all by ourselves with our people, and we're so proud of it because they were poisoning and destroying our population. Drugs brought in by ocean and by sea are now down 94%. We have broken the grip of sinister woke radicals in our schools, and control over those schools is back now in the hands of our great and loving states where education belongs. After rebuilding the United States military in my first term, and with the addition we are adding right now, we have the most powerful military anywhere in the world, and it's not even close. I've restored American strength, settled 8 wars in 10 months, destroyed the Iran nuclear threat, and ended the war in Gaza, bringing for the first time in 3,000 years peace to the Middle East, and secured the release of the hostages, both living and dead. Here at home, we're bringing our economy back from the brink of ruin. The last administration and their allies in Congress looted our Treasury for trillions of dollars, driving up prices and everything at levels never seen before. I am bringing those high prices down and bringing them down very fast. Let's look at the facts. Under the Biden administration, car prices rose 22% and in many states 30% or more. Gasoline rose 30 to 50%. Hotel rates rose 37%, airfares rose 31%. Now, under our leadership, they are all coming down and coming down fast. Democrat politicians also sent the cost of groceries soaring, but we are solving that too. The price of a Thanksgiving turkey was down 33% compared to the Biden last year. The price of eggs is down 82% since March, and everything else is falling rapidly. And it's not done yet, but boy, are we making progress. Nobody can believe what's going on. Here are just some of the efforts that we have underway. You will see in your wallets and bank accounts in the new year. After years of record-setting falling incomes, our policies are boosting take-home pay at a historic pace. Under Biden, real wages plummeted by $3,000. Under Trump, the typical factory worker has seen a wage increase of $1,300. For construction workers, it's $1,800. For miners, we're bringing back clean, beautiful coal. It's $3,300. And for the first time in years, wages are rising much faster than inflation. Remember that. The wages, just look at it. Wages are going up much faster than inflation. How big is that? Very importantly, there are more people working today than at any time in American history, and 100% of all jobs created since I took office have been in the private sector. Think of that. 100% of all jobs have been in the private sector rather than government, which is the only way to make a country powerful and great. This historic trend will continue. Already, I've secured a record-breaking $18 trillion of investment into the United States, which means jobs, wage increases, growth, factory openings, and far greater national security. Much of this success has been accomplished by tariffs. My favorite word, tariffs, which for many decades have been used successfully by other countries against us, but not anymore. Companies know that If they build in America, there are no tariffs, and that's why they're coming home to the USA in record numbers. They're building factories and plants at levels we haven't seen, AI, automobiles. We're doing what nobody thought was even possible, not even remotely possible. There has never, frankly, been anything like it. 1 year ago, our country was dead. We were absolutely dead. Our country was ready to fail, totally failed. Now, we're the hottest country anywhere in the world, and that's said by every single leader that I've spoken to over the last 5 months. Next year, you will also see the results of the largest tax cuts in American history that were really accomplished through our great, big, beautiful bill, perhaps the most sweeping legislation ever passed in Congress. We wrapped 12 different bills up into one beautiful bill. That includes no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security for our great seniors. Under these cuts, many families will be saving between $11,000 and $20,000 a year, and next spring is projected to be the largest tax refund season of all time. Because of tariffs, along with the just passed One Big Beautiful Bill, tonight I am also proud to announce that more than 1,450,000, think of this, 1,450,000 military service members will receive a special, we call Warrior Dividend before Christmas, a Warrior Dividend. In honor of our nation's founding in 1776, we are sending every soldier $1,776. Think of that. And the checks are already on the way. Nobody understood that one until about 30 minutes ago. We made a lot more money than anybody thought because of tariffs, and the bill helped us along. Nobody deserves it more than our military, and I say congratulations to everybody. And by the way, we now have record enlistment in our military, and last year we had among the worst recruitment numbers in our military's history. What a difference a year makes. In addition, I'm doing what no politician of either party has ever done, standing up to the special interests to dramatically reduce the price of prescription drugs. I negotiated directly with the drug companies and foreign nations, which were taking advantage of our country for many decades, to slash prices on drugs and pharmaceuticals by as much as 400, 500, and even 600%. In other words, your drug costs will be plummeting downward, and I used the threat of tariffs to get foreign countries who would never have done it to pay the cost of this giant dollar reduction. They stopped ripping us off, and it began as of 4 days ago. There has never been anything like this in the history of our country. Drugs have only gone up, but now they'll be going down by numbers never conceived possible. It's called Most Favored Nation, and no president has ever had the courage or ability to get this done until now. The first of these unprecedented price reductions will be available starting in January through a new website, TrumpRx.gov. And these big price cuts will greatly reduce the cost of health care. I'm also taking on the gigantic health insurance companies that have gotten rich on billions of dollars of money that should go directly to the people. The money should go to the people, that's you, so they can buy their own health insurance, which will give far better benefits at much lower costs. It will be far better health insurance. The current Unaffordable Care Act was created to make insurance companies rich. It was bad health care at much too high a cost, and you see that now in the steep increase in premiums being demanded by the Democrats, and they are demanding those increases, and it's their fault. It is not the Republicans' fault. It's the Democrats' fault. It's the Unaffordable Care Act, and everybody knew it. Again, I want the money to go directly to the people so you can buy your own health care. You'll get much better health care at a much lower price. The only losers will be insurance companies that have gotten rich, and the Democrat Party, which is totally controlled by those same insurance companies. They will not be happy, but that's okay with me, because you, the people, are finally going to be getting great health care at a lower cost. Another major focus is the cost of energy. For years, the radical left Democrats exploited the green energy scam as an excuse to funnel many billions of dollars into their own massive slush funds as their energy restrictions drastically drove up prices, and they drove them up at record levels. Electricity costs surged 30 to 100% under Biden, and the typical family lost $5,000 to $10,000 in higher energy costs. Think of that, $5,000 to $10,000 you lost. On day one, I declared a national energy emergency. Gasoline is now under $2.50 a gallon in much of the country. In some states, it, by the way, just hit $1.99 a gallon. And within the next 12 months, we will have opened 1,600 new electrical generating plants, a record, and it's a record that won't be beaten by practically, I would say, by anybody, or certainly not very soon. Prices on electricity and everything else will fall dramatically. The Democrat inflation disaster, again, the worst in the history of our country, also robbed millions of Americans of home ownership and indeed the American dream. The yearly cost of a typical new mortgage increased by $15,000 under Democrat rule. In 11 months, we've already gotten that annual cost down by $3,000, and it's coming down a lot lower. Wait till you see, the numbers are going to be shocking. And I'll soon announce our next chairman of the Federal Reserve, someone who believes in lower interest rates by a lot, and mortgage payments will be coming down even further. Early the new year, and you will see this, in the new year, I will announce some of the most aggressive housing reform plans in American history. A major factor in driving up housing costs was the colossal border invasion. We have never been invaded. This is the worst thing that, frankly, in my opinion, the worst thing that the Biden administration did to our country is the invasion at the border. The last administration and their allies in Congress brought in millions and millions of migrants and gave them taxpayer-funded housing while your rent and housing costs skyrocketed. Over 60% of growth in the rental market came from foreign migrants. At the same time, illegal aliens stole American jobs and flooded emergency rooms, getting free health care and education paid for by you, the American taxpayer. They also increased the cost of law enforcement by numbers so high that they are not even to be mentioned. For the first time in 50 years, we are now seeing reverse migration as migrants go back home, leaving more housing and more jobs for Americans. In the year before my election, all net creation of jobs was going to foreign migrants. Since I took office, 100% of all net job creation has gone to American-born citizens, 100%. In the end, government either serves the productive, patriotic, hardworking American citizen, or it serves those who break the laws, cheat the system, and seek power and profit at the expense of our nation. Look at Minnesota, where Somalians have taken over the economics of the state and have stolen billions and billions of dollars from Minnesota and indeed from the United States of America. And we're going to put an end to it. For so long as before my election, the vast majority of good and decent Americans were forced to watch as corrupt politicians plundered the halls of power, exploited our taxpayers, and pillaged every system that makes civilized society function. But not anymore, and you see that every day, not anymore. We're putting America first, and we are making America great again. Very simple. We are making America great again. Tonight, after 11 months, our border is secure. Inflation is stopped. Wages are up. Prices are down. Our nation is strong. America is respected, and our country is back, stronger than ever before. We're poised for an economic boom, the likes of which the world has never seen. Soon we will host the World Cup and the Olympics, both of which I got. But most importantly, we will celebrate the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. There could be no more fitting tribute to this epic milestone than to complete the comeback of America that began just 1 year ago. When the world looks at us next year, let them see a nation that is loyal to its citizens, faithful to its workers, confident to its identity, certain to its destiny, and the envy of the entire globe. We are respected again like we have never been respected before. To each and every one of you, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. God bless you all.